So this is my salad of the day, minus a little bit of the apple cider vinegar dressing. I just spilled it on my dress. Ah, now I have to wear it like this. Not fun. Wet bum. Anyway, and it's such a waste because it's organic cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, which is really good, and the apple cider vinegar, which is also top notch. Delish. I remember when I was younger, I always had to mix apple cider vinegar with some sugar or honey or something just to make it more palatable for myself. And not anymore. I used to buy this brand Good Health apple cider vinegar, but when I bought it in Chinatown in, well, not really, I don't know, Calgary. It's not really a Chinatown, it's like a block. But it's funny because I couldn't get it here when I moved here. Anyway, salad.
Hey, looks good. And drinks, not so appealing. Which one's the more recent? It's the more recent, so I should drink this.
No, drink this one. Well, I don't know. Drink whatever one you want. That one's cucumber.
Oh, okay.
That
I should
one's,
drink the toughest one.
Yeah, that
Cucumber's
one's the tough
okay. So, okay. Yeah, it's tough. Oh, okay. Oh, you're talking about medieval history, eh?
We still have peppercorns in my glass from this morning.
Okay.
Which I don't want to drink right now. That was just cucumber juice. I was humming and hawing. I'm like, should I put cucumber in the salad? I decided just to juice cucumber.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I'm talking about medieval England. We've
Okay.
already talked about it, I know, but
It's good stuff. It's worth
good stuff. We didn't.
We're actually going through it the
We're-
second
yeah,
time because I sleep
third.
through some.
Yeah.
There we go. I think we sleep through it. It's no reflection. It's just the chemo that I take. It's kind of sleep inducing. So it causes drowsiness and fatigue. I got 12 hours sleep last night and I'm still tired.
But this interlibrary loan came from Edmonton for us, and it's due back on the 22nd, so we have to get it back.
Yep. Yeah, too bad. I'd like to keep it, but
And I was bothered by somebody had went through and written in the whole book their page number, blah blah blah, whatever, all through.
at least they wrote it in
And-
pencil. But a little.
And what I
Did
suspect,
they put their name in there just for?
no, they should.
Yeah, I know.
Because really, I mean, basically, okay, here's what I think happens with these. I'm very thankful that these great courses come from Edmonton for me. Thank you. But I have a suspicion that these great courses that I often find
Disfigured.
books written in from Edmonton, and I think it's the university profs. I think they're going through and they're so accustomed to just going through their books and just writing whatever, and I think they have this kind of idea that whatever they add is like
God's gift to
yes,
the
they're
world.
giving a benefit. They're doing us a favor by adding their comments or whatever in the books, and it's
It could
like
be. I never thought
no,
about that.
nope. It's just so anyway, that's what I think is happening, and it's very frustrating for me because I like things to be perfect. Not as much as my dad was, but my sister is surprised, like when she saw my camera. I always have or my computers or whatever. The things are put away in the same packaging that I got them in. They're all perfect because I like things to stay that way. And so I have a very hard time, like, I remember when James first got me books and he would he'd lay down while he read and he'd put them on his tummy. And then I'd be, it was really nerve-wracking for me watching him turn the pages with the pages at the bottom on his belly, because I can't handle that. But so anyway, getting these things with the page, it's very frustrating for me to read it, because I see these things that shouldn't be there and it stresses me out.
There goes
That's
an
an apple.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was bothered that it was written in. James was bothered that it was writing in.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Some,
Damage
I
noted.
didn't say that.
Writing in.
Yeah, someone wrote that.
128.
A library employee, presumably.
Writing.
Writing in.
It's a very
Someone
sad
maybe
time
with
we
a
live in.
master's degree in library science.
Probably. And they writing in it.
Yeah. Get it straight.
Anyway, so where did I end up? I talked about, I don't know, maybe, did I start talking about Pope Gregory?
Oh, well, I was here.
All right.
He was an interesting dude. What are you on St. Augustine? The second?
Lecture 4, she's talking about Pope Gregory. 497, met an English person.
It's actually 597.
Is it? Did I get it wrong?
I'll check it up just to be sure.
That's okay. I don't care.
Well, just in case people at
Lecture
home are
4.
taking
You look into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a history person. I'm just looking for progression, like how things change and how things stay the same, and for how long, you know.
So you're talking
but
about
this
when he
is
sent
not-
St. Augustine
This
to
I
the...
just found interesting. It was like
to
a
the
trivial
Angles?
thing.
597.
597.
See, I a history major, and I try to stay
He
awake during
cares.
classes. I actually
So,
do care. It makes a
yeah.
huge difference. Muhammad
So,
was alive when this happened. right?
Angley, and he liked the blonde hair and thought they looked like angels. So he liked the
He
fact
made a
that
pun about it.
yeah.
See, angle, and it was using the same word, angle and angle.
And he was disappointed that they were pagans, but he still seemed polite and sociable with them.
Yeah. So
And they were-
basically, the Anglo-Saxons were converted to Judeo-Christian tradition the same time Muslims were, or Arabs, were, roughly the same time. 597. Muhammad would have been alive for almost 30 years, I think, by that point in time. Although he didn't get the call, I don't think, until 610, something like that. So roughly the same amount of time, you know. Got civilized at the same period of time. English and the Arabs. It's interesting to compare and contrast the two.
And anyway, so I guess the Angle told him, or Angley told Pope Gregory, or I guess there would have been translation occurring, or would Pope Gregory have known?
He wouldn't have bothered with
Why? Yeah.
English.
Anyway,
So
but,
St. Augustine would have had to learn, the guy who was sent out as a missionary would presumably have had to learn English. They wouldn't have been learning Latin just to converse with this idiot from down
Sure.
south.
So anyway, I guess the Angley guy said, "Well, we all look like this where I'm from. You know, they
Yeah,
all
there you
have
go.
the blonde hair."
Yeah, it would have been a shocker.
So it was shocking for
See,
Pope
they would have been,
Gregory.
back then, the poor disadvantaged people would have been people of non-color. Now weird.
Yeah,
The Celts and
yeah. King's
Germans.
Forest can't be hunted in or snared in. Hunters hired by King to kill wolves, though, because the wolves would take a share of the king's food or fun, whatever. Black Plague, 1/3 died. Jewish people blamed. People said they poisoned wells, and one Jew was tortured into confessing to a multinational Jewish conspiracy.
how the times don't change. But still pick on Jew. Times. I think there are
Since so many people
fake
died.
left-wingers going around saying, "Punch a Zionist today." Pretty
Put too
amazing.
much coriander in here.
That's just one step further towards the left wing carrying out finishing the final solution.
But on the upside,
Mm.
Since so many people died, living expenses are lower for the poor people. Less demand for supply drives prices down. And 10-year-old king.
Oh yeah.
Head poll tax now. Even poor had to pay.
Wow.
Church kicked out of Rome. So Pope now in Avignon, France.
Yeah, southern part of France.
Oh, I'm now way up to lecture 28.
Still a Mediterranean climate.
Bible now translated into vernacular.
Yeah.
Since clergy not needed as much, they don't need all the land they've claimed. The church owned lots of land, and people rented church land to farm. Church was pretty concerned about this development.
No one else was.
Peasants made a lot of demands of King Richard. He's now, at this point, age 14. The peasants want to follow the king. The rebel leaders were executed. So there was a kind of soap opera thing going on there. But
Yeah, big trouble is people died, but
and most of the rebel demands were not met.
of course not.
Church land wasn't confiscated.
Too bad.
Lecture 29. Latin was language used in Cambridge. French was language of common law courts, law French, and elite. By Chaucer's time, French seems pretentious. He makes fun of it. 14th century.
He uses it a lot, though.
Lots of mystics. Lecture 30. Constant struggle between Parliament and King, accusing treason. Richard eventually was imprisoned, and he was said to have starved himself there. King Henry the Fourth took over. Do you know about that? I have a question mark. Sometimes I'm in another room, and then I come back to write or whatever, and I missed, and I don't bother to rewind it. Anyway, that was lecture 30. You can look that up. But I find it interesting because
Henry the Fourth eventually took over.
what
I believe he
happened,
started a new
really, I
dynasty.
think, is that the young king, Parliament was already developed and functioning very nicely as far as Parliament was concerned. And so this 10-year-old king, they're like, yeah, that's awesome, because we're just going to keep running the show because here we are, Parliament, right? And then all of a sudden, King is like, he gets a little bit older, and he wants to be king, right? He wants to have some sort of more power than he had when he was 10 years old. And that doesn't work out, apparently. Well, not for him. He gets locked up, and that's done for him. So, starved himself there, was starved there.
Oh, he was starved. He didn't starve himself.
She said starved himself.
Well, you know.
Lecture 31. We're now in the 15th century. Yeoman,
Yeah, this was a big jump.
yeah, I know. I keep jumping around. Yeoman class develops. These farmers have been able to own their own land and can produce enough goods now to sell it, or even lease some of their land to other farmers. And some climb ranks into the gentry. To be a gentleman, you have to have a coat of arms. So you got to be a knight, right? But a yeoman who wants to become gentry must have a coat of arms. Well, how does he do this? He just comes up with one and hopes that he's not going to be made fun of, or that he'll actually be taken seriously. Some manage to have their coat of arms accepted. Clement Paston might have been yeoman, and William's son became gentry.
Incidentally, with that, stop there.
What?
Yeah, Henry the Fourth took over from Richard.
Okay, so I did get that name right. So anyway, William Paston was educated, acquired a wife that was a part of gentry. Her dad was knight, and he owned land. Large landowners had a harder time maintaining gentry status than small landowners had at that time. More and more land is privatized, less common land, and hedgerows made it so you couldn't easily walk across the land anymore. Land enclosure increases yields because the wool was profitable. So the large landowners decided, well, we're going to go for wool. So they just enclosed the land, and sheep was the thing to do, I guess. So Factor Coordinated Carder Spinner Weaver Processing. This work was called Cottage Industry Work. Company of Merchant Adventurers distributed the broadcloth produced. It was a guild, and if you wanted to be a part of the industry, you had to belong to the guild. Now, I didn't write down anymore, but I can tell you a little bit about what we were watching, and James could tell you a lot more. So the last disc, I stopped there in writing, and then the last disc was a crazy soap opera. I decided to stop writing because I didn't want to have to deal with all those details. It was wild. So you have, it started getting wild actually when who was it? There's 3 different guys that the land is named after. Because I've heard these names before, like North something and...
You mean like Northumberland?
Yeah.
They're named after the land. That would be...
Oh,
like
is that
the
what happened?
Duke or the Earl of wherever, right?
Okay, well, anyway. And then they're talking about how different people became king and stuff like that, or took over, and how it's now the Tudors and how they became the Tudors, and all of that crazy stuff.
So you're talking about Richard III, the humpback? I don't think she even mentioned humpback.
She was talking about Robin Hood there for a while, and I don't know.
I think they don't know where to place him in time, is what she was saying.
Yeah.
Because some guys would be named Robin Hood, maybe after the original Robin Hood or stuff like that.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, there was something about... There was a whole big soap opera about somebody getting the throne, but they weren't really the rightful king. And then there was a whole thing about Welsh people
Getting involved.
getting really involved.
Well, the Tudors were Welsh, right?
Oh.
So Henry VII,
that's
who took over then, was of Welsh extraction, and so that means Henry VIII, his descendant, I think it was his son, and Bloody Mary and Queen Elizabeth I were all his descendants. They were all Welsh.
But that's going way too far ahead in history. Oh, the War of the Roses. I got to learn how the name came about. And I had never known, honestly, I didn't care that much. Because I have a hard time not being completely bored by history. James just loves this stuff.
I used to be bored by history, and then I started finding out there were 2 things I think that made me more interested in history. There are a huge whack of people, and not just from one section of the world, that really live history. You know, they are nurturing insults from, in some cases, almost 1,000 years ago, and stuff like that. They just don't want to let it go, and you've just got to let things go, ultimately. And I mean, the Jews let the Holocaust go. You know, you don't find Jews looking after Germans and stuff like that. And that insult that they suffered, I don't know if there's any population of roughly comparable size has ever gone through anything like that, losing half of their population, at least in Europe. Shameful sort of thing. The Jews have behaved in exemplary fashion. And all they get is... on all sides of the political spectrum, they just get disrespect. I will say spit and abuse.
Okay.
But, so history is important because people have got their heads still in history. But the other thing is, I've been able to work on chronology, ancient history, and it's insane how badly they've got these chronologies. We really don't have a history back then because we don't have a chronology. So what we've got are these few things that they've excavated here archaeologically or were preserved and stuff like that, and it's just we've got the rags of time, as it were. So then because some weird things happen in history, that there was something that caused the Dark Ages. It wasn't like people overpopulating or getting too conservative or stuff like that. there's some, or there's this one thing going around. Like I don't believe in disparity in income or huge disparities, but there was too much of a disparity in income with the Roman Empire, and therefore it fell apart. You got left-wingers spouting sort of stuff.
Anyway.
Oh my God. Anyway, something happened worldwide in historical times.
The Roses, the War of the Roses, Edward and Warwick, and the War of the Roses was named that because of their coats of arms. One was red rose, the other was white rose. So that's where that came from. So, and apparently they didn't call it that back then, because why would they? That's just what the name that's developed to refer to it as that, because I don't know, it sounds good.
Yeah, we changed it. I mean, World War One. How did they know it was going to be World War One when it was happening? They would have been hoping. I think after they were calling it the war to end all wars. Like it was so bad, there wouldn't be another one like it. Within roughly 20 years of it ending,
got worse.
21 years, I'd say, there was a way worse war. And
well, I would say that it.
But they used to call it the Great War.
Yeah. Well, I don't think World War II has actually ended. I think we're still. It's just it's like, how they'll sometimes there'll be peat bogs or whatever that'll be burning underneath the ground, and you don't know that, and it just does that for a long time, and then all of a sudden it could go and everything. I don't know. I think it's like that, and so we don't even know what's happening anymore. But
well, I don't think the Cold War ended.
No.
Like Russia's back to doing bad things, but they've switched over to being from being fake left-wingers to being fake left-winger mixed with not so fake right-wing. So they're Nazis combined with communists. So ever since World War II, actually, they picked it up from the Perón family in Argentina. I think they were the people about 1943 to pioneer a combination of right and left-wing. In Russia, it was called the Red and Green Alliance. It really started spewing forth in the 90s. But you see, it was kept alive between the Perons and Russia in the 90s. Putin now is the prime exemplar. But it was kept alive in the so-called Third World really strongly in what really should have been considered extended Second World, places in Asia and stuff like that. So I think it's coming to the fore in China now, a combination of communism and nationalism, strong ultra-nationalism, communist kind of organization, a totalitarian kind of state, but with nationalist kind of things. So I think Pauline is right. Like there was a guy called Hobsbawm, who I think was some sort of a Marxist or a communist. He wrote something called The Short 20th Century, and what was so important to him was the communism. So it basically started with the Communist Revolution in 1917 in Russia, and it ended with the fall of communism in Russia 89 to 91. And so it's short on both ends of the stick. It'd be better to write something called the long 20th century. We're still in it. Pauline's right. She's sensing this sort of stuff. It started with a Boer War, with a nationalist type of war. Significantly, the Germans were supporting the Boers. That's where the Germans really started fighting the English. They're fighting more in terms of proxy war. I shouldn't really say the Germans. I should call them the Prussians. The Prussians had taken control of Germany starting about 1870, 71. And, the news was bad for the world and generally, and for real Germans specifically, non-Prussian Germans. So, it ended up in huge disaster in World War II, just absolute disaster. But
you ate your balls.
I did. I like them. Really long. The salad's a little strong with the...
Too strong for James.
Well, I was coughing. You heard me, right? So I'm going to have to eat it with some bread or something like that. Anyway, so what's happened is there's this fascism has been going all along. Like it wasn't killed in World War II. Hopefully it was killed in Germany. I think it's making a huge comeback. Angela Merkel's in trouble. The Social Democratic Party's in huge trouble. in Germany. Well, Angela Merkel, I think, is out. You know, the Christian Democratic Party is in huge trouble. So the Nazism was there all along. It just morphed from being National Socialism after World War II to being National Communism, and it was pioneered by Peron, but then Gamal Abdel Nasser got hold of it. The PLO, Yasser Arafat, who worked with the Germans, Otto Skorzeny, classic. Someone said about Yasser Arafat, he'd do anything for Otto. And that wasn't just any Otto, it was Otto Skorzeny, who'd saved Hitler's life during the bombing attempt on Hitler's life near the end of World War II. So Yasser Arafat, Saddam Hussein, this idiot, the father of the idiot who's in power in Syria, nationalism combined with communist totalitarian organization. Muammar Gaddafi, the late non-lamented leader, misleader of Libya. And that's, you know, in that part of the world, it's lost a little bit of fashion. And so what's happening there now is even more atavistic, harking back to the days of the Crusades and stuff like that. That's one place where they're just not willing to let bygones be bygones.
Well, what happened with World War II is it became very clear that wars couldn't be fought the same way anymore. That's what became clear.
To rational people.
Yeah.
If you believe in an afterworld,
yes, you're right.
Then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so people who believe, there are, I'm not going to single out any one particular religion, but there are ones that believe in an afterworld, and even Buddhists, some of them believe in an afterworld, like a heaven and hell. They're potentially dangerous, and they would be well advised to, I'm not talking about Buddhists specifically, I'm talking about any religion that has an afterworld. They'd be well advised to keep their followers in check and keep them away from nuclear weapons, because they will get used, and the world will be a real nasty place, especially if that's terrorist usage, because people will be going after terrorists in their midst, and it will not be a justice time, it will be vigilante time.
Well, there's already people pushing.
So I'm talking partly to Christians, but I'm also talking about anyone who believes in an afterlife. Better keep yourselves in line, all of you.
Anyway,
because there will be hell on earth to pay.
And my butt's all wet from apple cider vinegar. I guess that's why mine's less strong than yours, maybe.